Okay. Welcome, everyone. I want to welcome you to the third webinar of the Irreplaceable Grand Canyon series. My name is Allison Gitlin, and I'm the Grand Canyon Program Manager for Sierra Club's Grand Canyon or Arizona chapter. This week, we're going to be talking about the proposed development at Tusayan, Arizona, which is just outside Grand Canyon South Entrance Gate. The series is a collaboration between the Grand Canyon chapter of the Sierra Club and the Grand Canyon TV podcast to bring you a series of webinars and podcasts to spread awareness about threats to Grand Canyon region, highlighting uranium mining, proposed dams and tourism developments, and an expanding ski resort on the San Francisco peaks. So tonight we're going to spend about an hour talking about the subject, and then we'll let you know how you can get involved. And then after the presentation, we'll provide plenty of time for you, the audience, to ask questions of our speakers. I would like to ask that you all stay muted during the entire presentation, and for the best experience, you should use speaker view. Enter your questions in the chat, and at the end, someone will read them, or we'll read as many questions as we have time for during the Q&A section. We will be recording tonight, so if you don't want to be on video, please turn off your camera. And I'd like to start tonight with an acknowledgement that although several tribal voices are represented during this series, Grand Canyon in the San Francisco peaks is the current and ancestral homeland of many tribes, including the Havasupai, Hopi, Hualapai, Kaibab Band of Paiutes, Las Vegas Band of Paiutes, Moapa Band of Paiutes, Navajo Nation, Paiute Indian Band of Utah, San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe, Pueblo of Zuni, Yavapai Apache Nation, Ute Mountain Ute, Acoma, and San Carlos Apache. I'm speaking to you from Flagstaff in the shadow of the San Francisco peaks, and we are truly intercultural crossroads. So now that I've told you where I am, I'd like to invite all of you to introduce yourselves and tell us in the chat where you're joining from. And I also encourage you all to use the chat to talk amongst yourselves during the presentation. Should be an interesting one tonight. Tonight's issue is one that I've been involved with for some time, and so I'm really happy to introduce tonight's speakers and excited about the insight that they'll provide to us. Tonight's speakers are Tusayan's Mayor, Clorinda Vale, Havasupai Tribal Council Member, Colleen Casca, and former Tusayan Mayor and current Chair of the Tusayan Sanitary District Board, Pete Shearer. Colleen is joining us via phone, so she will not be on video, but you should be able to hear her clearly. I'd like to begin by inviting our speakers one at a time to introduce themselves. And please tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to this place. And let's start with you, Clorinda.
Hello, thank you, Allison. Hello, everybody. So I'm Clorinda Vale. I'm a third generation and 48-year resident of the Tusayan and Grand Canyon area. I'm proud to live in this magnificent place, and I'm honored to have been elected as Tusayan's mayor and to have just taken office just this past December. I attended Grand Canyon School here from K to 12, and I'm a graduate of New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell, New Mexico. I've been employed by Red Feather Inc. here in Tusayan, which has leased properties and also operates the Red Feather Lodge here in Tusayan, and I'm the lease properties manager since 1999. I served an 8-year term on the Grand Canyon Unified School District Board as president for 7 years, and an over 11-year term on the Kaibab Learning Center Board of Directors as the fundraiser or treasurer, and 8 years on the Grand Canyon Chamber Board of Directors as president-elect and as president, and I was a 10-year always try to in my community, county, country. And one of your other guests today here, the first mayor of Tusayan, Pete Shearer, and I, over the years, we've worked on some really great projects together, from studying cogen to driving thousands of miles for legislative issues for our school, and to acquiring 80 acres here for our school from the Kaibab National Forest Service. It's really easier to help and have great partners, and Pete Shearer has certainly been that for me and for our community. I would really like to help in any way I can to improve the quality of life for Tusayan residents and for visitors alike. especially for them to experience the real Grand Canyon and to get to experience it responsibly. I would also like to see the town go from just ideas to actually executing some good things for our residents and for our visitors alike. Developments absolutely must consider water, aesthetic, size, and everything should be done with the thought of what is at our back door. There is only one Grand Canyon National Park. It is special for all that come here and for those that live here. And it should never be desecrated, and development should happen responsibly on all fronts to show the respect that I think it deserves. That's my intro. I thank you.
Thank you, Clorinda. All right, Colleen, how about introducing yourself and letting us know what your connection to this area is?
Okay, I'm a member of the Havasupai tribe, and that's where I'm calling from, is from the bottom of the canyon, where we're still on lockdown, and the Supai Canyon is still closed to visitors, so we're kind of stuck down here unless for emergency situations, medical. That's the only time that people are able to go out and come back in. Other than that, I am not council member at this time. And my connection to the canyon is lifelong for me. And I just been born into it. The canyon surroundings, including Supai and the Grand Canyon National Park, south rim of the canyon, being my home. And that's my introduction.
Thank you, Colleen. All right, Pete Shearer, will you introduce yourself?
Yes, Pete Shearer. I came here about 50 years ago. Came back from Southeast Asia and passed through the Grand Canyon and pretty much never left except to go back to school for a couple months at a time. Then I would hike for 3 months at a time, go back to school for a semester, come back, hike for 3 or 6 months, go back to school. So the canyon has been my home since 1970. And I've got almost 6,000 miles in the canyon hiking. I've hiked from Cameron to Elks Chasm, done most of the trails on the North Rim, raised 2 great kids. It's a great community. I got to work with the founding fathers of the sanitary district and the business leaders of the community in the late 70s when the sanitary district was formed. And they're all gone now, but they asked me, one in particular, Bob Slayton, asked me to watch what happens with the sanitary district because they put so much work and energy into it, they did not want to see it screwed up by them, meaning the county, the Forest Service, the Park Service, and now the town. So that's been my motivation, is to carry out my word to them to try to continue to have a sustainable and a very healthy environment, especially for the Grand Canyon, because that's where my heart really lies, on the Tonto Plateau, those 72 miles of numerous springs that in the 90s had dried up because of overpumping of water. And now they're back to being healthy because as chairman of the sanitary district, we are able to provide up to 80% of our water needs through recycling and reclaimed water. So that's been very, very important. I was the first mayor. I was honored to work with Clorinda on lots of projects. I've been chairman of the sanitary district for 21 years now, I think, 20 or 21. And it's been a great, great community. I'm not against development, but I am for sustainable and well-planned development. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Pete. All right, I'm gonna start out the evening, before we get into our discussion, I'm gonna show a short presentation on what the proposal for development is in Tusayan, and then we'll go into our discussion. So I'm gonna share my screen. And you all should be able to see the slides now. And this is the entrance to Tusayan. And what we're looking at here is a map of the area. So land in Tusayan has been, quote, irrevocably zoned in a manner that allows for 3.5 million square feet of commercial space, 2,000 residences, and thousands of hotel rooms. And this land is owned by Stilo, who's an Italian development company. And what you're looking at in this map, you can see that there is the boundary of Grand Canyon National Park. So the proposal for this development is less than a mile from the park boundary. And you can see Tusayan as it currently exists in the middle. And then there's 2 parcels on either side that are the parcels that we're discussing tonight that are proposed for development. And the reason that that the public has a stake in this, besides the fact that it's outside Grand Canyon National Park, which is a place that's near and dear to many of us, is that the parcels are surrounded by the Kaibab National Forest. And so in order to develop, they need to get a special use permit to run roads and utility easements across the National Forest land. So they need to run 1 road and utility easement 80 feet wide out to the 10X parcel and 1 out to the Kotsin parcel. And it's important to know that this is irrevocably zoned land because this was done by a previous town council, but if they ever sell this property or in the future, it can be developed to that capacity no matter what is promised at the moment. Okay. And so I would like you to see what's proposed I want you to hear it in Stilo's own words, and I want you to see it in their own images. And so what I'm going to show you is a part of a video that was a promotional video that was put out by Stilo's public relations firm. The entire video is 20 minutes, and you won't be able to find it online because once people started to watch it, they pulled it down. But I do want you to know that this is representative of what they plan to build. And the way we know that is because a representative of Stilo and a town council member were caught on a hot microphone speaking about it. And so I'm going to play you a little bit of that, and you can meditate on this guy while you're listening, because that is an actual screenshot from this video.
Can't hear it.
Yeah, we can't hear it, Allison.
You can't hear it? Oh, darn. Okay. All right. Oh wait, share computer sound. Let's try.
So this is the link to the video, and that's public knowledge also?
That's on our website. Now, keep in mind, we don't advertise that because the video is primarily for Europe. You know, we've always wanted the right kind of partners on the different pieces, particularly Insight, things like that, the Native American Cultural Center. So it may be a little more commercial than you might even be comfortable with. Oh, no, if you go to our website, you'll see the video.
I hate to say this, because I consider myself an extremely intelligent person.
You are.
I cannot navigate internet.
Well, why don't I send you? I'll send you a link. So I'll send you the link, and you just have to click on it.
That would be perfect.
Now, can I send it to your personal, rather than, because I don't want to advertise it to the town that we're doing that, and it's.
Okay. So you heard him say that he doesn't want to advertise to the town what they're planning. And you also heard them say that their European partners are better, are more preferred to help them plan their Native American Cultural Center than local partners. So now what I'm going to show you is about a 3-minute excerpt from the video that you just heard about. And this will show you a little bit about what they're planning.
Let me take you back to the Tusayan of the future, the way it should be and could be as a unique, viable, profitable development. Stilo is the owner of 2 properties bordering the town and a joint venture partner in a third located within the 143-acre boundary. Our 160-acre Kotzen Ranch property offers us the opportunity to realize our plan for a wide range of visitor-oriented services. Services envisioned to provide a more inclusive, more rewarding, and in-depth experience of education and entertainment over a longer period of time. An environment of learning and leisure to more fully complement a visitor's experience at the canyon. Services including fresh new lodging, a pedestrian-friendly village center offering extensive retail, dining, and entertainment venues. The 35-acre Insight Educational Campus will offer a Smithsonian-quality edutainment environment of interconnected pavilions filled with technology, innovation, and opportunity for learning and experiencing the history and growth of the area. Insight incorporates the appeal of an Epcot Center or Universal Studios combined with the uniqueness of the Northern Arizona history. As you walk through the Insight environment, you'll see new exhibits, exciting new presentations, bringing together the regimens of natural forestry, the history of geology, the power of hydrology, the day-to-day presence of wildlife, the need for and growth of sustainable development, the history and dignity of local Native American cultures, and the beauty of the night sky shown like never before. Insight is a personal, creative, and technological involvement never before experienced by the traveling public. This project also has the opportunity to develop open-air venues for music and entertainment that will rival Virginia's Wolf Trap or Colorado's Red Rock Amphitheater. Doesn't it make good business sense to expand and provide services and create entertainment and educational venues in this magnificent setting, thereby enhancing the experience and extending the stay for millions of tourists, all who bring billions of dollars for their traveling pleasure?
All right, bonus points if you picked out the image of Bryce Canyon in there. But you saw them show that they're gonna show us the night sky like never seen before, because evidently you're not gonna be able to see it at Grand Canyon anymore if there's too many lights. It's a large proposal with a lot of promises. So here is what is actually in the application that they submitted to the Forest Service. And so they're promising a 33% reduction in density, but we never saw what they were planning to build before, so we don't know what a 33% reduction is. But you can see here that they're not telling us how much residential they're going to build. And this is partially important because they did disclose that a lot of the residential units are going to be short-term rentals, so essentially hotel space. And then they're proposing 2,500 hotel rooms. And just to give you a comparison, the Planet Hollywood Hotel in Las Vegas is about 2,500 hotel rooms, and the Little America Hotel in Flagstaff is a tenth of that. It's about 250. We don't know how many homes they are proposing, but we know that they have capacity to build up to 2,000, and the entire town of Williams is only 1,400 homes. So they could potentially build a town larger than Williams. And so our concerns as the conservation groups are pretty much everything: water, lighting, view sheds, commercialization, litter, noise, congestion, traffic, And they want to bring a lot more multi-day visitors to the park, which is going to increase congestion in the park. It's going to tax their infrastructure. And I really want to emphasize that we are not opposing workforce housing in Tusayan. We recognize that Tusayan needs some development. It needs workforce housing, but they're not talking about workforce housing here, and they're not talking about any services for all of the workforce that's going to have to be brought in to run this. This is also really important because they are in the same, the town of Tusayan is in the same watershed as obviously Grand Canyon, where some of those springs are very, very small and could be blinked out very easily and support hundreds of times the species of the surrounding landscape. And of course, they're in the same watershed or groundwater basin as the Havasupai tribe and their spectacular springs and waterfalls that are the base of their culture. So one more little word out of this guy. Why do people come to Grand Canyon? Whoops, let's go back.
Uninviting amenities, proving not to be a worthy destination magnet for millions of vacationing canyon visitors. Yet, they continue to come every year.
And I would bet everybody on this call would argue with the fact that Grand Canyon is an unworthy destination without more urbanization. So, all right. So with that, I'm going to stop my screen share and let's hear from our guests. Oh gosh, I can't. My screen is not allowing me to, okay, wouldn't allow me to exit PowerPoint. All right, so I'd like to hear from each of you now, and I want to hear about what your connection is to this area and what do you think is special about this place. And let's go in the same order. So let's start with you, Clorinda.
Okay. So what's special about this place? My first thought when I even saw that question is what isn't special about this place? There are truly so many things, right? I feel any of us who've been to the canyon, we feel that. My connection to this place begins with my grandfather, Bob Thurston, and then later my parents, Bonnie and Bill, acquiring property here in Tusayan. I grew up working at a gas station that my mom operated, going out in the woods to play until the sun went down, and having lunch on the canyon rim most days from about the time I was in middle school here. The wildlife here is absolutely amazing. I have seen about everything you can imagine just from my house, let alone what I have seen in the woods or while hiking and driving around the canyon. Everything: bobcat, javelina, raccoons, wild horses, cougars, just about everything you can think of we get to see here on a pretty regular basis. And sometimes when we see this tourist stop and look in awe, we remember that it's just normal to us. That's just every day that we have such a an amazing view of wildlife in our area. On a side note, our hummingbirds are back, and so that's going to rule my husband's life for the entire summer, being sure that he keeps all the hummingbird feeders fed. Like Pete said too, I love to hike the canyon. I absolutely love to hike the canyon. I've hiked most not around the Great Thumb, but most all of the trails on the South Rim. I have hiked and quite a few on the North Rim. And I feel that when you've done that, and especially into some of the more remote trails of the Grand Canyon, you really appreciate every little pool, puddle, water, seep, spring to a greater degree when it is your lifeblood down there in the canyon. You've hiked some of those remote areas. So having been down it's a lot of its trails and down a lot of its rivers, I truly feel that what isn't special about this place is what I have to say about this place being special to me. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Colleen, will you tell us a little bit about your connection to the area and what you consider special about this place? And Colleen, you are muted. You may have to hit *6 on your phone. Uh-oh, we still can't hear you, Colleen. I have you still on mute. All right, let's go to Pete. And Colleen, if you could keep trying, you might have to hit *6. All right, Pete, let's go to you while we figure out what's going on there.
Okay, so a great overview of why we all love the Grand Canyon. Like Clorinda, I haven't hiked around the Great Thumb, but I think telling you about my kids' experience, when my son was 7, we went to Indian Gardens. He spent a week down there with me as I worked on the pipeline, the campground, built houses, installed the water pump, did the mule barn, built trails. I spent a year in the canyon. I used to hike out 10 miles to go to kids programs when on the rim, and then hike back in at 4 in the morning to go to work. So Grand Canyon was home for me for a long, long time. I built the wastewater treatment plant at Indian Gardens and also the one on top. Built lots of houses in the area, seen the area grow. But when we went to Ribbon Falls, my son said, "This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. It must be the most beautiful place on the earth." And he was 11. And then we went to, when he was 7, we hiked over to Thunder River, and he said the same thing about that. And the Esplanade, when we woke up, was just filled with it had rained all night, and it was just a mirror of beautiful blue sky with the clouds. And then he discovered Supai. And so then that was the most beautiful place on the planet. So anyway, we would like to see other families, other hikers enjoy this area and not have it be destroyed, and have limited hiking opportunities, because if there's no water for 72 miles, you can't carry enough water for a 9-day hike. You might be able to do 3 days, but a lot of these areas are going to be permanently damaged and inaccessible to future hikers. So that's really my main goal, is to ensure that the health of the Grand Canyon stays, sustainable for future hikers. That's really the word. And I lived with the Navajos for a couple months when I was younger, and out by Lupton, Arizona. Spent lots of time in Supai, and spent lots of time over at Grand Canyon West with the Wallapai Indians. So the Grand Canyon has really been my home for 50 years, and I would like to ensure that it doesn't get spoiled by massive development. And we'll go into all the other details. That's pretty much it.
All right, great. I think Colleen might be trying to call back in, because I think she was having trouble. So let's, yeah, I think she's calling back in. Okay, sorry. These are the things we're all used to in this Zoom age, aren't we? So let's move on to the next question, and then hopefully we can get her to catch up. So the next question I have for both of you is, what do you fear, and you kind of touched on this, but what do you fear will be lost if this area is developed inappropriately? So Clorinda, can you get us started on that one?
Sure. So I really feel that as some other places that I've been to, and I guess I would use Pigeon Forge as an example. If any of you have been to Pigeon Forge right outside the Great Smoky Mountains, and I know it's been an economic developer for there, but the way that they did it, the aesthetics that they did it. To me, what we can lose if we develop inappropriately is really the respect of the nation and the world, is if we develop inappropriately. The entrance to the Grand Canyon, it must be treated with respect when it comes to growth. It is absolutely one of the crown jewels of our national park system. It's awe-inspiring, and I think that it practically tells you how we should behave just by looking at it. Water on all fronts is always the most concerning for me. It absolutely is. Be it running water of a flood or this historic 1,200-year drought that we're currently in, some other management area. And I don't know exactly what the answers of this are. It's things that I've just began learning about, really, more since I've become mayor and doing a little bit more research on. Is I really think the way that all of Arizona is growing, to be sustainable, it may be that we need some other type of management areas other than each region just kind of doing whatever they're wanting to on their own. It seems here we've only kind of focused more on the urban areas, having water management plans and so forth. And just like the map that you put up a little bit ago, you can see how large that watershed is. And there have been issues, in the past that the Supais have brought up as well. And just having some other type of entity above a lot of these rural areas so that we could grow sustainably and effectively together, and not, possibly one area not growing sustainably, withdrawing all the water for the area. I just think that there's more to be checked into, and for us to grow a little bit more sustainably as a region. And unfortunately, I don't think that we're quite there in the rural areas, but I sure hope that we can get there sooner than later, because water's becoming more like gold than even it was in the past. And I think that the problems are only going to compound the more that we don't to look into some other type of regional plannings and all being very neighborly with each other with regards to water. So that's it. Thank you.
All connected. Yeah. Okay, Colleen is back on the phone, so let's see if we can hear from you now. Hopefully we worked out the tech issues. So Colleen, do you want to tell us a little bit about why this place is special to you and what you fear will be lost if the area is developed inappropriately?
Yes. Like I said before, it's just my home. It's always been my home. Like right now, even though I'm in the canyon, I miss being out there. I wish I was up there right now, seeing how this coronavirus has affected that area. But I'm pretty much thinking that it's affecting it the way that it has down here in the canyon, where it's just peaceful, it's quiet, there's no tourists down here. It's just us people living down here, from day to day. And the ground is revegetating, with no, not a bunch of people down here, meaning the tourists, all over the place. So it's been really quiet and nice. And I can just imagine how the canyon was when, it first took off with the coronavirus up there. And I missed it, but I can still feel it, inside of me, how it was affected by it as well too. But the 10X area and Tusayan area, again, I've been told from my people that have passed on, saying that that's the area they roamed, collected piñons and vegetation, hunting, camping, all around that area, including up to Red Butte, and even Tusayan, where there was just one or two gas stations, a motel, and then behind that, where they still had roping area where they used to go and rope with, the local people there in Tusayan, and all that is gone, and I can't imagine how it must have looked like when my people were there. When they explained that to me, it's like, wow, and all that is gone. And Tusayan right now, there's just a bunch of housing that I see. When I was growing up there, it wasn't like that as well too. It's grown a lot in my eyes. And then with this development coming to 10X is wow. I've seen Tusayan grow, and now I'm going to see 10X grow into this commercial place, is how that person described it, is going to be. And I'm like, wow. And then there's the water source that's affecting everybody. And it's going to work for a while, with the development. Everybody's going to love it. But in the end, it's not really going to be worth it for all the surrounding people. Even today, I see it at the canyon. When people come to visit, it's just commercialized, and they're quick stops here at the canyon, take a look and move on to the next one. It's not a great visit for them, you know. So if they keep commercializing it and this development taking place in 10X near Tusayan, I believe it's just going to make it more crowded, you know. I don't know where these people are going to be parking their vehicles because it's crowded as it is right now in the canyon. Transportation wise, you know, how are they going to bus those people into the park, because the park is just overcrowded right now. People, like I said, people complain even when they're on the rim, you know, bumping into each other, and the retail shops, waiting in line. So, and I don't think the canyon can hold any more people right now. I don't know what the total visitation was, the number that they were giving out. I want to say 8 million people a year now, you know. And I remember it used to be like 4 million, and at that time that was a lot. But these numbers keep growing, and the canyon cannot handle it, because we as people don't respect the earth. We're forgetting so much, and we're just keep taking, and it's not able to gonna give us more. It's gonna quit. It's gonna quit on us if we keep treating it the way that we do. Even here in Supai, we have so much visitation. Like I said, right now, the ground, the earth right now is breathing, is taking a deep breath, and me along with it. It's like, wow, this is so nice. This is how it was when I was growing up, just peaceful, quiet. And the canyon, like I said, I've seen it grow too. And with this development, it's the water source that's going to be affected as well. And people don't see that. We keep talking about water, 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 you know, and it's getting to the point of water being so scarce now. It's like, you know, what if the other countries decide to sabotage us with the water? We don't have that much water. And I say that because down here in Supai, the people that come check the cubic feet per second for our water, the river down here, kept letting us know that, hey, it's the same cubic feet per second. But my eyes see differently. I know that there's drought out there at the canyon. I know because I stay out there at the plateau areas, because we have cattle and we have horses. So, and I see a bunch of them suffer, die during the summertime because we cannot haul water out there. And it's so dry where it used to rain like April, May, and get some water into the earth tank. That does not happen anymore. And they are saying that it's because of climate change. And this climate change is still continuing because we, the people, are not respecting our mother, the earth. You know, I know that's kind of redundant, and everybody says that a native comes up to speak to a group or whatever, they say it's our earth, but it's the truth. I feel it inside of me. I hear it crying every day, you know, and it's like I still see the stars down here at night, clear as day. And for them to say that where they can see the stars, you know, where's it going to be at inside a building? I don't know, you know. We don't want to go there. And it's so hard to try and explain these kinds of situations to people who are just wanting to make the money off of the canyon. Yeah, it's just so much, you know, to talk about. And again, back to the river down here in Supai, I say that with the cubic feet per second, that they say it's still the same, but in my eyes, I told you I see differently, is because there are some springs that used to be running. Now they're dry. And our river creek is getting smaller and smaller. And it's like, what are we going to do to get their attention? Because they're still drilling. They're still drilling for water. They're still wanting to develop. And what am I going to do? What are my people going to do? We depend on this water down here. That's our water source. That is our water, the life for my people. That's what I think about when they talk about development at the Grand Canyon. First and foremost is the water, and then the wildlife. My father used to tell me wildlife were here first. They made the trails, you know, and I know there was a bobcat on the rim of the canyon, which was walking ahead of us that I didn't see, but it was walking ahead of us, me and my son. My son, we were in the woods, and it was walking ahead of us, but for some reason, it wasn't scared of us. It just kept walking further and further away from us. But, you know, that was a blessing. That's called a blessing for the wildlife. If you see them, you know, always, I've been told to kiss the ground. Every morning that you wake up, try and kiss the ground, say thank you. And everybody, every living person, we are all forgetting that. And it's hard. It's really hard. Like, you know, some people want development, a little bit of development, so they do make more money. But then, you know, like I said, there's always the other side that affects it. With the water, the building, and people say that they're going to build housing for the workers there. But we will not see that. I know most of it is just going to go to retail shops, or someone even mentioned entertainment. I'm like, wow, all that at the canyon. You know, it's unreal. It is unreal. But development will always happen, and I am not against development. There's some good and some development that will help our mother, you know, but that's what we have to think about for us to survive, for my children and their children to survive. We all have to think about that. It's not just us. It's our future generations that we have to think about as well, too. At this point, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Colleen. There's a lot there to process and think about.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that leads right into my next questions for Clorinda, which are, what do you think the town needs to provide for the health and well-being of its residents? And what are some solutions that the town can employ to solve its problems? You know, following up on what Colleen said, you know, there is some need for development, but how can we do this respectfully and responsibly?
So first, I would like to state a couple of things, you know, based on what Colleen said. She's definitely right that in our lifetimes living here, you know, we've watched it go from just in the hundreds of thousands or a million up to 6 million is what it went to, I believe, in 2019, 6 million visitors. And definitely had a large decline, you know, last year for sure. But just in listening to her speak, I really wanted to touch on, for just a short period, I was honored to serve on the Havasupai Business Enterprise Council. And I had such respect for the Havasupai and their thoughts on development on the rim. And their thoughts and development only wanted to be away from the rim. And I just, as she was speaking, I was just, you know, knowing again why I'm such great neighbor and friends with all the Havasupai people, and just the respect that that they have always shown the Grand Canyon is something that in listening to her, that I just wanted to point out before I went into my answer. So as far as for the health and, you know, well-being of our residents, I really feel that supporting the first responders that we have now here, we have formed a the Tusayan Fire District many years ago, and they are really serving, you know, between here and basically between here on almost to Williams and most of the way to Flagstaff. That then we have Guardian, you know, and so forth. But in supporting those type of entities, being a sales tax driver, you know, that we have to be able to do with having the option with the town, first to support the safety responders that we have in the area right now, and build on more type of health services being offered. We're pretty limited here as to what we can get at the clinic, but depends on the year or the time that we might have a dentist or we don't, or we might have a physical therapist or we don't. And just all those type of things of that the town supporting in any way that we can, because it's also very hard here to have more than one clinic. Our clinic here is already heavily subsidized, and something that's important to remember and for people to know that is largely supported with the National Park Service. And for other entities that don't pay property taxes and some other kinds of things that go on, I think it's a wonderful one that is really need to be remembered, that in how they're supporting the whole area by helping to subsidize the clinic. I think that funding being spent via goals and set by the town will really change things, that we have really had as a council, really been having retreats and setting a lot of goals. And I think that will really change things. Maybe more than previous councils have been able to accomplish. Really looking at all the housing options is also something that as a council we have set as a project, and I think that can be huge, because as Colleen was saying, there has been a lot of development in Tusayan in our lifetimes, because there really wasn't here much when we were young. But Tusayan, the current developed area is what I'll call it, of the Tusayan town boundary, is only 144 acres of private property. And there's only about 70 of that has been currently developed. So there is a lot of opportunity for other housing options here in town. And there's a lot of other opportunities beyond that I see. There are other properties available that could be in there. Those would be more long-term than short-term, but there's some short-term, I think, that could be done with housing options on current land possibly, and some other partnerships that could be done on other parcels, and even, some other possible land exchanges or something to just be for residential property adjacent to town. It would be my hope, against, with the existing infrastructure that we already have here. I also think it's very important to build and repair relationships with federal agencies, county, state, tribe, all of our neighbors that I've really been trying to reach out and work on those relationships. And they're just very important in this area who we are surrounded by, that we be good neighbors to all those very important entities. We've had a flood study going on here for about 9 years in Tusayan. That is also another goal that we and that the council set as a project to accomplish soon. And they all, like I said, water overall is just is concerning, and finishing our flood study is another priority for me. Our town sports complex, and these things kind of get into more our personal and local area. But, we've had generations here grow up since Pete and I worked to acquire that property, and I'm really looking forward. We have some projects moving right now, just since I have become mayor, and just right prior of some outdoor other things going on at our sports complex that I'm just really, really, really excited about. So I'm not sure if you wanted me to go into my next question, or if you asked me the next one.
Yeah, I think you're talking about solutions for people who live in town, rather than inward-facing development, rather than outward-facing, in a very different scale than what we were just looking at in that film. So
absolutely,
I can appreciate that. Yeah. So the next question that I had for you, if you want to go into that, was. Well, I think you kind of covered it. Like, what are some of the solutions the town can employ to solve it?
Right. I did some, but that I definitely, housing is really, it's extremely limited, near Grand Canyon, and Tusayan's private property taxes are very high, because of us largely supporting, the school inside the park, that the other concessions don't pay property taxes. And so we have a lot of unique challenges that make a lot of these things not just, so easy to do all the time. But I definitely would like to see, more recreational facilities for the current residents, and just always thinking about water. Once again, is we can't, solve any problems unless we are thinking about how to solve the issue of water. I really feel like Tusayan has done everything it can to conserve water with our expensive A+ quality and award-winning reclamation system. And that's also largely thanks to Pete Scher here and many others that have served on that board, but also the users here in Tusayan, that it is businesses that decided to take on that some pretty high user fees to have that A+ quality water. And it has reduced our potable water usage by 50%. And so I think that just really shows how much the area has really tried to care for, for potable water. And it's a precious natural resource that should matter to all of us. I don't know what all the impacts of water could be with the development of this size, but I do know that the area is so special and it should be treated as such. Looking at all options for housing development is a project that I absolutely hope to see as a priority. And I look forward to working in good faith with the council on getting that done. There are a lot of other options to solve issues in Tusayan, just as we have in the past. We needed a reclaimed water facility, so we did it. We needed school land in Tusayan, so we went and got it. And there's a lot of things like that I could go on in this community, that when we need to solve, we step up and we get them done. And it's come that time again that I think that there are, aside from this, there's some other great opportunities that there are some other options to do some other things here. And I think that just remembering that it's only half developed here of the acreage that's here is something that I don't know that is always that a lot of people that aren't from the area are even aware of. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Clorinda.
Thank you.
I appreciate your insights as the town's mayor, so thank you for that. So I want to turn back to you, Colleen, and Pete. We'll talk to you in a second about the resources at risk. But following up on what Clorinda just said about what the town of Tusayan and its residents need, Colleen, I want to ask you, what does the Havasupai tribe need to provide for the health and well-being of its members? And what tribal needs should be considered when developing on or near the South Rim? And you are muted again. Uh-oh. Are you able to unmute, Colleen? Oh no. Oh, sweet, got it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I live at the canyon with no running water, no shower and area, just one big room. And that's where I grew up at the canyon. And that was that way for years, up until probably 2010 is when they built our new homes, which is less than a mile from the canyon, from the rim, Supai Camp. Those, what do you call them? Well, those new buildings went up, I believe, around 2010. We waited that long for our new housing up at the canyon. And right now, I believe there's maybe about 12 families that live up there. And most of them are up there because of medical reasons. And in development, I would go that way is for my people to be closer to their medical appointments, or make it easier for them to be out there where they can go to make their medical appointments, get their medication, and whatever that they need to do while they're in that status. And so that's my thinking on that with development for my people. And with
the other question was what tribal needs should be considered when developing on or near the South Rim?
Yeah, well, that was it. Basically it is, just for medical needs for my people. And since it's so hard down here, we don't have a doctor that lives down here. We don't have a dentist that lives down here. They do rotations down here with medical and dental. So, being out there, they're closer to those doctors and the dentist or whatever health reason that they might have, they're out there already and they can make their appointments easier than from down here. And was that it, or was there another question?
Yeah, that's it for now. I'm going to get back and have the three of you discuss something in a moment, but those were the questions that I just asked. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it's amazing when you think of the contrast of what you're talking about, and having trouble, not having running water indoors and medical facilities, and then you look at the absolute disconnect with the scale of the development that we just saw proposed. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Okay. All right, Pete, let's turn to you. And I want to ask you what you see as the resources most at risk from Stilo's development proposal. And you can talk a little bit about what the town has done to conserve its resources as part of this question as well.
Well, I think Clorinda spoke on that. As far as we realize that water is very precious, and I'm speaking as a private citizen, not as a representative of the sanitary district. I wanted to make that clear. But we've had great success. We spent $1 million in putting the distribution system, pumps, the filters in to build our water reclamation facility. And that has enabled us to do this great thing. We're #1 in the nation in per capita water recycling. But most importantly, we have saved the seeps and springs of the Grand Canyon. So going back to what Clorinda said about Pigeon Forge, what we're going to lose, the biggest thing we're going to lose in this area is the enjoyment of the visitors. I would say that Yellowstone is right there in the same level as Pigeon Forge, where you go to enjoy the outdoors, the Smoky Mountains or Yellowstone, and you get in a 45-mile line of traffic, then you wait 10 or 15 minutes at each viewpoint in order to snap a few photos, and then it really deters from the enjoyment of the area. That's one of the great resources we're going to lose. I don't see where if we go from 2,000 rooms in the area to 5,000 or 6,000, how we're going to be able to continue to provide an enjoyable environment for the visitors. And that's one of my biggest concerns on this. The park has no way to accommodate double or triple the amount of traffic and the amount of tourists. We've got the highway is a big area of concern. Right now, in the last couple of weeks, we've had lines 3 miles long waiting to get into the park. People are very upset. They're driving through our residential communities because their GPSs are taking them on alternative routes, which don't get them there any quicker, but it's a steady stream of traffic through these areas where the kids normally can play on the streets and walk up and down with very little traffic. The highway from Williams is already a deadly highway, and the last 2 weeks has been steady lines where it's impossible to pass, and a traffic study should have already been initiated by the developer to try to figure out what to do. It's going to take 10 years for ADOT to move on some action to improve the safety of the highway. So then we've got the Grand Canyon School with the massive development. They're going to go over the 100-kid limit in the high school, and they stand to lose about $1 million in spending capacity. The money will still be there, but the state does not allow them to spend it. And so the developer was required by the development agreement to have a plan in place to mitigate those concerns. And we signed the agreement, I think in 2011, Clorinda and I, she was the school board president, and we have a very good agreement with them, but it's been 10 years and they still have three things that are outstanding that they have not kept their word on. And one, that whenever the development was amended, they were supposed to create CC&Rs, and those still have not been done. And so that development agreement is basically unenforceable. And that's one of the biggest concerns, that the school is going to be negatively impacted. The high school may have to close. And so that's a huge impact of this development. Water, that's kind of a no-brainer. The U.S. Geological Survey has estimated that because of the development, they will be, the springs in the canyon will go down by about 50 to 100 gallons per minute, which may not seem like a lot, but they point out later that that is the total flows of a lot of these springs. And so they will be dry. We'll have a desert wasteland. The plants and animals, the hiking availability, it will all be gone permanently. And so the water is the crucial element. And if I have time, I'd like to explain. I live off the grid in a cabin that we collect our rainwater. 95% of the water that we use is rainwater. And we also have solar power. And so we're not tied to the grid. Our good friend Pat Lazan from Northern Arizona Wind and Sun taught me about electricity and as compared to water. He said, because a friend of ours had run out, and he said, even if he doesn't, if we have full sun for the next 30 days, he's using more than what he's putting in. Even if he gets 5%, it's going to take months for it to be recharged, just like a water tank. He made the analogy. So that's what's going to happen to the aquifer. It's going to be slowly drained down. And then once it's drained down, it may take generations for it to come back. And that's my biggest fear about massive development and over pumping. In their development, or in their proposal to the Forest Service, they have proposed as a method of obtaining water to draw it from the aquifer in the off season, when there's not the peak demand. And the problem with that is the aquifer needs to recharge. It needs those winter months for it to recharge. And so their proposal is deeply flawed. They also have 64 acres that are zoned for short-term rental housing. And that is commercial by definition. It's an alternative to motel rooms. So that they are classifying that as residential. Those up to 2,000, 2,400 homes could go on there. And that would be classified as residential, so they could use groundwater when in fact they are a commercial enterprise. And so that's a major concern. So I think that's it on that. I've got some more on your next question.
Okay, thanks, Pete. And what I'm hearing the three of you talk about are the needs of the community and, you know, the communities. And it's very different than what I hear. You know, I hear a lot of empty promises when I hear the developers speak, but I don't hear this level of detail about this is what we have and this is what we need and this is what we care about. And those are really important. So thanks for that, Pete. I'm gonna give you the next question, which is a little bit of a different kind of question than what we've been talking about, but this proposal has really divided the community. I've seen it being up there. And some people are in favor and some are opposed. And I want to know, do you feel that opposing voices have been heard by Tusayan's government, and why or why not? And you are muted, Pete.
Sorry. So yes, the community is very divided. That's been the developer's greatest achievement in the 30-some years that they've been here. They have been successful in dividing the community against itself. The town of Tusayan has or had an adversarial relationship with the Park Service, the Forest Service, and the county. They tried to do that with the fire department and the sanitary district, but we were fighting back, and we are forcing them to cooperate. And so they have divided the community, and they have not allowed us to be heard on many instances. And I can tell you, I can't count how many times in public meetings the mayor would look at the public request to speak on an issue, and he would come to my slip and he'd look at me and he'd put the slip aside, and half the people in the room would say, that was your slip, right? And so we didn't even have the opportunity to speak, and that was one of the downfalls of that administration. Now with the new council and the new mayor, they are trying their hardest to turn it around to we've already built better relationships with the Forest Service, the county, and with Grand Canyon National. And so kudos to and best of luck to the council on those endeavors.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we've got about 20 minutes left, and I do want to make sure that we have time for audience questions. So I'm just gonna ask you three, if you could just take a minute to talk amongst yourself, but with a mind towards making sure that we have time for the audience to ask their questions, because a ton have come in. Where have you seen barriers to your ability to protect your people, land, and water? And what needs to change to give you a better ability to protect the health of your tribe and community? So where have you seen barriers and what needs to change? And I'll just let the three of you discuss this amongst yourselves.
I guess I would say first, kind of what I said a little bit ago, is that I feel like we need some other type of management authority over us for water. There was a few years ago that the Havasupai tribe had a lawsuit that sued quite a few well owners, and some of the well owners here in Tusayan were happy to provide their information so it could be studied, and some did not. And so there are just, I feel until we get a better plan, there's going to be these lingering issues of wondering who and what with water, that if we had some type of other authority, you know, above us, some other type of rural management, or I know there's a variety of styles, you know, that can be done, but it just doesn't seem like there has been the appetite with the county or with other entities to really help us accomplish that. And I feel like the longer we go, the more we're just pushing water concerns down the road and making another generation going to have to deal with it rather than us. And so that's something that I see as a challenge and possibly an opportunity if we could get all the right parties together to do something like that.
And I'd like to say that in 2011, we got a grant to study flood protection and to create a plan to protect the community and the sanitary district. And in 2014, there was a letter sent from the Forest Service to the town stating that they could move forward with that. And it was 5 years later, I think 2019, when we became aware of this, because we contacted the Forest Service and said, how can we get this moving? And they said, you already have the go-ahead to get this moving. And so I went and talked to the mayor at the time, or the town manager, I'm sorry, and the mayor also. But the town manager told me, yes, you've got all these projects, flood protection, parks and recreation, fields, community library, community garden, basketball courts, Ramada. We've got all these great projects, including safety issues with street lighting and fire protection by enhanced funds. And he said, none of those projects are going to move forward until the developer gets his application approved for utilities and road easements. The town at that time was spending $180,000 a year on lawyers and lobbyists in Washington, D.C. And so in order to move things forward, the town finally elected a new members of the council, and hopefully things are going to get much better now. We've already got the community garden materials on the way. we've got the Ramada is in progress. So the town in the past has really impeded our ability to protect it and to enhance the enjoyment of the area for the residents and for the tourists.
Thank you. And yeah, it's great to see things are moving. Colleen, yeah. How about you?
Can you hear me?
I can now, yeah.
Okay, yeah. On the barriers, I believe for my people would be our location, because we are down here in the canyon, and we seem to say that our water source is coming from the top, but we're not at the top due to, you know, being put on the reservation down in the canyon. So I believe that would be our biggest barrier, is our location. Even though our homelands are up on the plateau areas near Grand Canyon as well too. So that would be our biggest barrier, I believe.
That's a huge one. Yeah, it's true. Everything flows towards Grand Canyon, but you're not at the top to control that.
Yeah. And I just want to go back to what you were talking about earlier on the homes and development of homes and that, but you know, at the Grand Canyon, that new development hasn't gone up yet, but yet we still have the visitors coming to Grand Canyon National Park, you know, and then they will still be coming because they want that unique experience. They don't want to be, you know, with all this other development in the canyon. I believe that most people, the visitors that come to the canyon, are wanting something really unique and different for their family to experience. And that's what they're looking for. As for us down here as well in Supai, you know, we don't have McDonald's, we don't have Burger King, we don't have motel rooms, we don't have all those luxuries of cars going here and there, but the visitors are still coming. They are still coming. Why? Because they don't want to see all that development that's going out up there. That's the one reason why, you know, they come to that Grand Canyon and down here to Supai, I believe. And also with the homes that they were talking about, is bigger is not always nice. Right now they're going to the tiny homes. Why? Because they know that the tiny homes, you know, will still sustain a family as well as the big house. And in my eyes too, I believe that we're going to be coming to a point, even up there in the cities, rural areas, urban areas, wherever, we're going to have to resort back to planting our crops, our food. We've almost seen it with this coronavirus. You know, and it's going to happen in the future if we don't take a hold of our situation.
Oh.
And like I said, it's just, you know, the experience that the tourists want to see.
I think you're absolutely right, Colleen. I don't go to Grand Canyon to go shopping. I go there to get away from all the commercial development and to be in the wilds. Yeah. Thank you all. Yeah, I'm really grateful for all of your insights and your time and preparing answers to those questions. And this is a really great discussion. And there are a ton of questions that have been coming in. So I want to take a moment to just let people know how they can get involved with this. So the developer and the town are partners on this application to get this easement through the forest, and that development application has been accepted by the Forest Service, and so it will go through a public policy through the National Environmental Policy Act, public process, sorry. And so at that time, people will be able to get involved. And last time it went to the NEPA process, 120,000 people commented. And so I want you all to know that you have potential to make a difference, because when all those people commented, the forest supervisor heard, she took notice, and at the time she said this development proposal is not ready, and she sent it back. And so I want to encourage you all to engage again. And what we will do is, I don't know when that's going to happen, but everybody who's registered for this webinar, I will send you an email at that point. We will definitely be putting stuff on social media, letting everybody know that a public comment period is open and that you can take action at that point. Sierra Club does have a petition online right now. If you are concerned about this and you want to communicate that with the Forest Service, I will type into the chat box how to access that petition. And if you sign that, we are holding those signatures until there's a public process. So we won't send them to the Forest Service now. We'll send them when they're actually accepting comments. So I will type that into the chat box. And with that, I would like to pass the mic to our chapter director, Sandy Barr. And if you can start reading off questions to our panelists.
Sure. The first question I found is, has the Forest Service granted the road easement?
They have not. I'll take that one. They have not yet. There has only been a road agreement signed with the town of Tusayan for its 20 acres of housing development that it started and then stopped quite a few years ago, to just basically maintain the road during the construction process. It didn't happen. And so no, there has been no easements issued yet. That's what this application process is. That's what it's part of.
And hopefully ever. Okay, what is irrevocable zoning? Is it a development right? Isn't this project subject to NEPA, which we've been talking about, and whatever environmental review happens in Arizona?
I don't know if you want me to take that one, Allison, or it is, yes. So it's the zoning is set. I'm trying to remember what the other part of the question was beyond the zoning.
Is this project subject to NEPA or any other state environmental review?
It is subject to NEPA, and we have also been told that it will be going to a full EIS as well.
Environmental impact statement, that is. Yeah, and just to clarify on that, so the irrevocable zoning, when the town annexed the properties, the parcels into the town boundary, they signed what was called a pre-annexation and development agreement, which was essentially a contract between the town and the developer. And there were a number of stipulations in there, including that this was irrevocable zoning. That's how they worded it. So it is private property. So the development itself, it's like any other planning and zoning in any other town, not necessarily having to go through the NEPA process, but the roads have to go through the NEPA process because they are crossing through Forest Service. So.
There was a hand up. It looks like it's down now, but it was John Thurston. Did you want to unmute and ask a question, John?
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can.
I just wanted to make a comment about two other real important topics on everything we're talking about. The Highway 64, it's a very dangerous highway. And then also the garbage that is going to be created. I think that kind of gets overlooked a little bit, the garbage that this development will create. That's it.
I guess I would just add to that for all of you that are not so aware of our issues here, definitely it's two very vital ones. Our highway is already pretty maxed out. We've been a headlight highway for a lot of years. That means the next part would be to study more. And our garbage right now is all hauled from here all the way to Joe City. If you're not aware of that.
That's okay. It's okay. We're good.
And I'd like to add that we're also concerned about ruining the Kaibab National Forest. The county closed the campground down for safety issues years ago. At that time, we had people camping everywhere in parking lots, they were dumping their raw sewage on the forest. They were leaving unattended fires. They were trashing out the entire national forest. So it's not just here in Tusayan, but it's the surrounding area. That's one of the things that is at risk.
And another question is, and I think this was part of one of the other questions too, is basically wondering about what kind of state environmental reviews there are, including for development of the private property.
I'm not aware that there would be any state reviews unless it except for anything that would involve a well with AWDR, Arizona Department of Water Resources. I don't think Pete or anybody else, I mean, if you've got anything, but I think that would be the only role that they would have. Comments with regarding a highway definitely have been received in the past from ADOT, Arizona Department of Transportation, but I'd say they were more comment than any review is how I would state it.
And ADEQ would have control over wastewater treatment and what type of plant they have and that type of thing. So that's one other review that would go through, but that would just be to ensure that it was done correctly. It would not necessarily impede the progress.
I missed this question earlier. It's a little bit of a rhetorical question, but I think, still worth asking. How can foreign investors have the right to do such developments in our country? We have the same problem in Prescott with our beautiful natural granite dells.
Colleen, you want to take that one, Colleen?
What was the question?
The question was, how can foreign developers have the right to do this kind of thing in this country?
The first thing that comes to my mind is money talks, you know, and that's why we're in the situation that we are, is because people keep wanting more and more of the green bells. And if you have a lot, you know, you can basically get away with almost everything to do what you want. And that's what's been happening.
And I think Allison answered this a little bit, but how can the development be stopped or shrunk?
How can it what?
How can the development be stopped or shrunk? Made smaller.
Oh, how can it be stopped? What we're doing right now, you know, discussions and trying to explain the effects of development will do, what it would do to the location, you know, the visitor enjoyment. We still got to keep pushing on and doing what we do right now. It's just letting people aware of what the people live in the area think about, because they're affected by it on a daily basis, whereas the visitors just come through for a couple of hours and they're gone. You know, we're lifelong residents of this area.
And so I would add to that, I can't make a comment or don't have a comment on anything to do with stopped, but as far as shrunk and what they have proposed in their third reductions is, as the graph that Allison put up a little bit ago, I have made it very clearly known at numerous town council meetings already that I really question this third reduction, it being made real. They've said that they will do it, but I've seen no process go through our planning and zoning department to actually make that real. What you talked about in zoning and that they have the rights to it forever. If the property were flipped, there would be no requirement to keep that third reduction. And so that's when I definitely brought up Pete and the Tusayan Sanitary District have brought it up to the Forest Service, that's one that I would say, even up to a meeting last week, we're trying to put our thumb on it to get an answer as to what they're going to do with that. And so I guess I would just say is that we're trying to make that idea that they have done to make it actually real. Because right now it's been, to me, a little bit more of like a press release than anything absolutely being real yet to do anything per the zoning that they were allowed to develop, even would currently be allowed to develop at the densities that was approved in 2011.
And I would just like to add that at the same time that they are proposing to reduce by 1/3 the commercial densities, they are asking the town to relinquish or to relax the agreement and add 10% of motel rooms and do away with this vision that they showed on that video of a pedestrian-friendly community and an environmental and educational facility. So they want to replace that with more motel rooms and do away with that vision that they had been proposing. So I would say comment in the NEPA process and in the EIS. That's the best thing you can do to try to control this in some manner.
All right, and how does Stilo plan to provide water to their mega development?
They have proposed to the Forest Service that they're going to haul water in 9,000-gallon water trucks. And I've got about 1 million miles back and forth between Williams, Flagstaff, Belmont, hauling water. And the legal limit is 6,000 gallons. So they don't even know what legal is. They'd be 40,000 pounds overweight if they followed that proposal. So they don't have a plan. They told the Forest Service that it would only take half as many trucks to haul 200 and some thousand gallons. And their math isn't even accurate. So they do not have a plan.
Thought I saw one more question in here.
Gary Lee had some questions that also are a little bit rhetorical, but might be worth asking. Hold on, I'm scrolling up and looking for that. Okay. Why do we always assume we can build something greater than the Grand Canyon or that the canyon needs our enhancement? Does anybody want to address that?
I guess I would say, I don't know, this is just what popped to mind from the comment. I filed a referendum in 2017 here. Our Tusayan Town Council had passed a ordinance that they could raise the height from three stories up to 6 stories and maybe even more outside of the flight apron. So it could have been in between 3 to up to 10 in some of the areas of just the 144 acres here in Tusayan. And I got so many calls from people in Flagstaff when we won that. They didn't even respond to the Park Service. The Park Service wrote a letter and said, hey, please don't do this so quickly. Can we please at least look and see what this would do to the view shed on the North Rim if you went to this high? And the council kind of looked at each other and they didn't even acknowledge the park's letter. And I was very upset. I knew I was filing a referendum that night on it. I didn't know if it would be successful, and I was just super happy and thankful to the community that they agreed. But looking at Flagstaff now, I'm so thankful that we did that a few years ago, because there really is a difference in density, you know, in what, anyways, in just those type of things. So I guess I would, caring about those kinds of things is really important, and respecting our neighbors and all those things with regards to, to those things. But I sure did get a lot of phone calls from people in Flagstaff that have lived there a long time or all kinds of things going, thank you for protecting, Tusayan. And so anyways, that, and I've, what the buildings and the height in Flagstaff has caused quite a scuttlebutt. And there is something I think about these mountainous treed areas, that when you get the buildings bigger than the trees, something doesn't seem to balance. And so anyways, that might have been a little off on that, but I'm sorry, that's what it made me think of.
No, I think that's right in line. It's true. The view shed is very different here now that they've raised buildings above tree height. And, you know, we only have one Grand Canyon. Like, why would you risk that? You can't.
And could I just add that Clorinda mentioned the view shed from the North Rim. Tusayan has spent a lot of money changing our lighting, which was dark sky intrusive, to dark sky compliant, so that in order to be a good neighbor, to try to protect the dark skies of Northern Arizona, we have done everything we can.
Yeah, and my comment would be, you know, we're just, again, just being disrespectful to our natural resources. We're not thinking of taking care of it, you know. We're just thinking of having the fun and the activities that, you know, will give us more energy. And it does, but on the other hand, we still need to be respectful of everything.
All right, thank you all. We are at 6:30. So I don't know, have we answered pretty much all of the questions? I see we have one more question about where the water is coming from, and I can answer that and just say they haven't disclosed yet. They are telling us that the commercial development, they are saying that they will not take it from the same groundwater basin, but they haven't disclosed where it's coming from. And the drawing of the groundwater basin that they gave to the town, the groundwater basin mysteriously ends at I-40, and there's a straight line along the bottom. So I can guess somewhere south of I-40. But I don't know if anyone wants to add to that, and then we should probably call it a night and thank our speakers. So does anybody else have anything to add to that, Water?
There is the theory that this $180,000 they spent on lawyers and lobbyists in Washington, D.C. was to try to persuade the National Park Service to give them water once their new pipeline is in place. And they also bought the coal slurry line, I had heard. So they've got options of how they could pipe the water, but nothing is definite.
Thank you, Pete. Yeah.
And I think too, another thing is that we the people have been taking things for granted from our natural resources. And when I was watching news, basically when they had that storms come through, and you know, people that went out without lights, you know, it was like, wow, people, welcome to my world. You know, that's how it feels like, you know. And I hear this lady saying that they resorted to melting snow, and I'm like, thank you, that's my world out here. You know, it's like they took things for granted for so long that it was so hard for them to comprehend what was happening to them, you know. And that's one of the reasons I believe, you know, my people are trying to keep Grand Canyon the way that it is don't take it for granted, you know. Always be thankful for it.
I think we can all appreciate that. Well, with that, let's call it a night. And I am so grateful to the three of you for stepping up to discuss this issue and for all the great work that you're doing. So thank you so much. And with that, we will be signing off. So thank you to all of our participants this evening. And next week, we will be talking about the San Francisco Peaks and the Arizona Snowbowl development. That's the final discussion in this series, and we are going to get really into how to protect sacred places and what we need to change in our land management. So I hope you can all join us, and thank you, everybody.
All right, then, thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Stay happy.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.